I think that it's just good to review. We are able to continue meeting virtually as an advisory committee to the RRTPO, and the ability to do that is given to us through continuing emergency declaration as well as ongoing considerations by the General Assembly. We are continuing under that procedure for the time being, and we have to have some additional information on that from the General Assembly. For anybody who is attending virtually and has questions, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom window where questions can be posted, and staff will be monitoring that window. Members of the meeting can also enter comments in the chat that will be seen by everyone. And as Ms. Smidler mentioned, the first portion of this meeting today is to focus on the interagency consultation. And I know Mr. Grinnell has a slide deck to share. Dan, let us know if you want to. I think you should be able to do that yourself, or staff can advance it.
Sure.
Whatever.
Okay. Dan, just to jump into, I forgot Sonia Lewis Cheatham is here from DEQ.
All right. Hi, Sonia.
We have 13.
Good morning.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Looks like we got a good turnout. Can everybody see that all right?
Yes.
All right. Well, we're here to kick off conformity. Well, first reminder, I just want to remind everybody the TAC meeting will begin directly after the ICG adjourns on the same Zoom link. So, all right, we're here to kick off conformity on the Richmond area constrained long range plan and 21 to 24 tip. We'll update the membership list, and I'll be seeking your approval for the conformity schedule and the project list. So regional conformity is required due to the 2018 court ruling, which has reinstated regional conformity requirements in the Richmond area and became effective in February of 2019. In November of 2018, EPA issued guidance for conducting conformity under the revoked 1997 standard in these orphan maintenance areas. The current regulation requires an emissions analysis up until the standard is revoked. Therefore, a quantitative emissions analysis is no longer required to meet conformity. The conformity can be demonstrated by meeting those remaining items under the regulation for the Richmond area, which include the consultation process and projects that are from a currently conforming tip and plan. ICG membership is specified only by the agency or locality. Their current consultation procedures were approved in October of 2005. Consultation is required on the schedule and project list under used for conformity. We want to make sure the list we use indicates whether a project is regionally significant. All right. This is the most recent ICG list, which we have updated last year, I think at Richmond's ICG meeting. So take a minute and review and let me know if you see any changes that need to be made. I know Chet earlier you mentioned that we have a new representative for Greater Richmond Transit Company, GRTC.
Yes, I believe it's Sam Sink. Sam, do you want to feel free to say anything if you want?
Oh, hi everyone. I'm the new director of planning and scheduling at GRTC. Been working at Hampton Roads Transit for the past 10 years, and I served on the TAC down there. So looking forward to finding out what's going on in Richmond.
All right, nice to meet you. Are there any other changes, corrections? This is the geographical area for the orphan ozone maintenance area. It includes portions of both the Richmond and the Tri-Cities MPOs. Richmond is not updating nor amending their temper plan at this time. This is the current schedule. The draft report will go to the Tri-Cities TAC on March 4th for approval to submit for public review beginning on the 7th. Any adverse comments will be addressed, and then in April, we'll be seeking Tri-Cities MPO approval to submit to FHWA. We expect to receive a final determination by the end of May, if not earlier. All right, at this time, I would like to open up the meeting to discussion on the project list. If you have any changes, any corrections, any additions, let me know.
And this is Ron. Yeah, there's a couple of corrections that error mistakes that I made when I sent you the list. The first one is it's line, oh, sorry, it's line 50, which is listed as the project Route 460 project 100432. There's an additional companion project 103754 to that project. So I don't know if there needs to be its own line or just kind of combine them both as listing in the line. They're both budget items.
Okay.
These are projects that VDOT made us put in a tip. They're just budget items. And then the other one is, and this is just me trying to be too diligent. I actually have UPC. Oh, it's actually on line 41. The Puddle Dock Road Improved Intersection 101289. I have it listed 3 times. So we need to remove that from line 7 and from line 47. I have listed in 2 other places.
Okay, well, keep line 41.
Yes, keep line 41 and get rid of line 7 and line 41. No, 47, I mean. Yep, remove line 7 and 47.
Okay.
Other than that, I did a triple check even this morning. Again, it looks correct.
All right, thank you. I guess the 460 project, we'll just list that as 2 separate. Since it's 2 separate UPAs, we'll just put it on 2 separate lines. It's
Okay.
not a regionally significant project.
No,
Is there anything else? Anybody have any other comments? I hear none. I'll move on. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Do you have anybody online?
We don't have anyone noted. Oh, I see Tara Fitzpatrick has raised her hand. Hang on one second. Ms. Fitzpatrick, you should be able to speak.
Thanks. This is Tara Fitzpatrick. I work at Greater Richmond Fit for Kids, and I am the Richmond City Safe Routes to School coordinator. And I wanted to thank Plan RVA for all of your help on working with me and my organization on our TAP grant application, so that we may continue our non-infrastructure programming. We are currently in our 7th year of programming for Richmond Public Schools, and the safety loop funding has run out on that program statewide. And so we have been advised to apply to TAP grants, and we wouldn't be able to do it without Plan RVA's help. So we wanted to thank you for your support throughout this process.
Thank you, Tara.
Thanks. And if there are any other questions, I know that Phil and a few others in the agency also have my contact information, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or concerns about our project.
All right. Do we have any other comments from the public? There will also be time during the public review period of the draft conformity document for people to comment as well.
I do see Barb Smith is raising her hand as well.
Okay.
Hey, Dan, Lakeview Branders Bridge, that's an active project. Does that need to be on the list?
So it's not in the current tip and plan?
Should be in the current tip.
I'm looking.
Barb, this is Jim. What's the UPC for that project? Do you know offhand?
109229. Chessa sent me cheat sheet.
Oh, it's not listed in the tip. Yeah, just let you know, I'm checking too. I'm looking on the state's tip report, and I'm looking on the our own tip just in case there's a problem. That should be a secondary project, right?
Yes,
And UPC again.
Is it?
was
it's probably not regionally significant.
No, it's not. It wouldn't be. What was the UPC again?
109,229.
I just did a quick search on the project.
I think it's
list,
a group
and it
project.
didn't come up.
I think that's why it's not in the tip. I think it's a group project. I'd have to go look at the group project list if you want to hold on a second. There's now that kind of listing for projects. Let me minimize this temporarily. VDOT has a group project list now. In fact, I think I might.
Does it matter since it's not regionally significant?
It will not matter if it's not regionally significant. And Ron, did you confirm that it is in the grouped project list?
That's what I'm checking right now. I have to go to VDOT's website. They now have a grouped projects quarterly report. Let me go to that.
Yeah, we can always add this to the list at this point.
Yeah. I'm okay
Yeah.
either way.
If
for the
you'll
sake of
just-
this.
Yeah, we don't need to waste time with it. We can add it if it needs to be added.
Dan, Miles just commented in the chat that it's on the group list.
Oh, okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
good. Thanks. Thanks, Miles.
Thanks, Miles.
All right. I think that concludes. I need a motion to approve the membership updates, the schedule, and the project list as amended. Do I have a motion?
Excuse me.
Yep.
Can we check one more project real quick?
Sure.
UPC 115195.
What is that project?
Atlee Station Road widening. Just checking to see that it is included. I see it.
Should be in here.
I see it as line item 160.
Yeah. Okay.
There it is.
I apologize. I missed this list in reviewing the agenda. I didn't realize it was a linked list, so. But thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. All right. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to, this is Jim Ponicello. I'd like to make a motion to approve the membership update. Andy adding Sam Sink as the GRTC representative. Approving the conformity schedule as noted in this presentation and modifying the project list as noted. We'll be deleting lines 7 and 47 and keeping line 50. And also we'll be adding as a sister project to line 50, we'll be adding UPC 103754, which is a non-regionally significant budget item. And that
Second.
concludes the motion.
All right.
I second.
Thanks, Ron, for the second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thanks. Thanks for coming. That
Thank you
concludes-
all. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you all.
concludes
Thanks,
the
Don.
ICG meeting.
Thanks, Chet.
TAC meeting will begin shortly, I guess. Right,
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Staff meeting will begin right after
I'm
this.
gonna leave.
TAC? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everyone for their patience. I'm filling in for Kelly LeDuc, Chair of the Technical Advisory Committee today. Sharon Smidler and Chet already gave the statement regarding virtual meetings, and we've already covered the ICG on the meeting agenda. So next up is roll call and certification of a quorum by Ms. Firestone.
Yes, 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
Town of Ashland, Miss Amos,
Here.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman,
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Badunez,
Here.
Mr. Flagg,
Here.
Henrico County, Vice Chair Smidler,
Here.
Mr. Yor, Powhatan County, Mr. Shardine, City of Richmond, Ms. Clark,
Here.
Mr. Bridewell,
Here.
Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge, DRPT, Ms. Javinsky,
Here.
Parks, GRTC, Ms. Sink,
Present.
Ms. Robinson, Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons,
Here.
Mr. Ariel, Ridefinders, Ms. Tisdale, Mr. O'Keefe,
Here.
RMTA, Ms. Simmons, VDOT, Ms. McAdory, Ms. Mueller.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda, number 2, is consideration of amendments to the action meeting agenda. Chet, you want to bring something up about a recommendation?
Yes, thank you. Actually, 2 items. The first one is related to item number 7, which is incorrectly listed in the agenda. This is not an amendment to the UPWP. The action item is a recommendation to approve priorities for fiscal year 23. The attachment to that item is correct. The staff report is what I'm referring to, but the agenda item itself needs to be changed from amendment to FY23 priorities. The second item that I would bring to your attention is item 12. We have heard considerable feedback regarding this item and the projects that were brought forward in the agenda, and staff is recommending removing this item from today's agenda and scheduling, working with TAC members to schedule a special meeting to address regional smart scale priorities that would still allow for recommendation from the TAC and action by the policy board at its March meeting. And staff's recommendation is to work offline with each of you to find the best time to schedule that meeting. It can be virtual and can be focused solely on this item. Those are the 2 amendments that staff's recommending for the agenda today.
Are there any motions to modify the agenda as Chet mentioned?
Madam Chair, this is Diana. I'm make a motion to change item 7 to approve the recommendations for FY23 priorities, as well as to remove item 12 from the agenda with a special meeting to be held.
Thank you, Diana. Any second?
Joe Biden second.
Thank you. Ms. Firestone, do we need to do a roll call on that?
Ms. Firestone, you're muted.
Ashland, Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Richland County, Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez,
Aye.
Mr. Flagg,
Aye.
Henrico County Vice Chair Smidler,
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Brightwell,
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky,
Aye.
TRTC, Ms. Sink,
Aye.
Plan RBA, Mr. Parsons,
Aye.
Ridefinders, Mr. O'Keefe, and VDOT, Ms. Mueller.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for that item.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is number 3, approval of the January 11th, 2022 TAC meeting minutes. Any changes to the TAC meeting minutes? If not, would anyone like to make a motion to approve them?
John O'Keefe, I'll make a motion to approve the TAC minutes.
This is
Nora,
Smith, second.
Let's go with Nora as a second. I did hear Nicole at the same time too, but I think I heard Nora clear. So is it all right? Go with Nora Bemis with Town of Ashland with a second.
Madam Chair, I think we can do a voice vote for this one.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Number 4 on the agenda is the open public comment period. I know Tara Fitzpatrick had commented, I think about one of our TA, transportation alternative applications. So wanted to give a chance for her while we're formally in the TAC meeting to share her comments.
My apologies. I'm new to your meeting, so I didn't realize that wasn't the comment period.
No worries. It was a little unique with the setup before.
Okay. Yeah, so just to reiterate what I said earlier, I'm the Richmond City Safe Routes to School coordinator. And I've been working through the Virginia Safe Routes to School program. This is now our 7th year of having program, but our safety loop funding at the state level ran out. And so our traditional non-infrastructure grant process has not happened for this coming year. And actually for this past year, we lost a significant amount of funding. And so we're looking to supplement that. VDOT has then asked us, the coordinators for the state programs, to use the TAP grant process in a very, very unique way, which has along the way come with a lot of, is this what we're supposed to do here? So there's been a lot of confusion through the process, and I want to thank everybody at Plan RVA for any work you may have done with notice or with a lot of last minute notice. The appreciation is there. And of course, as you go through and look at these project lists, if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate. And if you're unfamiliar with what we're doing, we've been working to encourage students to use active transportation to get to school for the past 7 years. We also do what we need to do to support them in that. So we work on educational programming, and we work with the school district and the city on trying to improve conditions in many ways, infrastructure to make families feel safer in making that choice to choose active transportation.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chet, was there anybody else have any public comments that we've heard of or in the chat?
No, have not received any other notifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 5 on the agenda is the TAC chairman's report. I don't have anything. I'm filling in for Kelly LeDuc today. So number 6 is the RRTPO update by Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. I really didn't want to belabor the already packed agenda this morning. The current work efforts are included on page 7. I wanted to highlight that the Bike Ped 2045 plan is opening for public review, I believe tomorrow. and that will last for about a month. So I wanted everyone to be aware that that is something that we would appreciate you sharing, and making sure that your constituents are aware that the plan is available for public review. It's going to be shared in multiple locations through our social media, through emails, to all of our interested parties groups, and targeted directly to different community agencies and organizations. So please help us spread the word that the plan is available. And with that, I'd be happy to take any other questions on work tasks that are underway. But understanding the time, I'm happy to move on to the next item.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, that the public comment period is opening. And yeah, Henrico would be happy to share Plan RVA's social media post on our social media. So we'll monitor it, or if you guys want to let us know when it's on Plan RVA's social media, Henrico will be glad to share that.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see. Next is item number 7 on the agenda, Unified Planning Work Program, priorities for fiscal year 23. This is an action item. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. I am sharing my screen. Can everybody see the full slide?
No, I see the next slide as well.
Let's see. Let me see.
I don't know if it's in presentation mode.
How about that?
That looks great.
Okay. So I wanted to just take a few minutes of your time this morning. One of the things that we do about this time every year is start to think about our work program for next year. This is essentially all of the activities that staff is going to be considering as it moves through the year, starting July 1 through June 30th of the following year. So this will be July 1 of 22 through June 30th of 23. The activities that are in the work program address federal and state planning requirements, and also address regional transportation planning issues and needs. So it's a combination of things that we've identified locally that are getting some energy and some focus, and also things that our federal partners recommend we include or require that we include. We have to do this, especially for the federal and state requirements, so that we can remain eligible for federal aid, highway, and transit funds. We typically organize the work program under 4 core areas. And this is something that we started, I guess, about 2 years ago with the reformatting of the work program to try and make it simpler and easier for anybody to follow. So the 4 areas are program support and administration, general development and comprehensive planning, long-range planning, and short-range planning. So just a couple of highlights: the general development and comprehensive planning. This is where we house our public engagement planning and organization. We have also put equity analysis here because it really spans across all of our different planning disciplines. And then any special studies that appear during the year are typically covered under this program area. The long-range transportation planning, as you can guess, is the long-range transportation planning that we do. Most typically, that is the LRTP. We also have included scenario planning here, which we were not able to include in the Connect RVA 2045 long-range plan due to various things, but COVID isolation and the inability to actually have meaningful interaction with the public outside of the virtual setting. So that is something that is on the books for hopefully to take up with the remainder of this fiscal year as well as next year. And then short-range transportation planning is the focus on funding and our different sub-allocated grants like RRTPO and Cmec, as well as the TIP and any other like performance-based planning, freight planning, and those types of dashboards and data resources that we hope to continue to grow as we move forward. We did receive updated planning emphasis areas from Federal Highways and Federal Transit this year. The 8 items that are shown on the screen are the entirety of the planning emphasis areas. These are recommended for all MPOs to consider as it moves forward with the work of the organization. And we have included some of these, not all of them, in our proposed priorities for FY23. So those priorities, the first 2 slides, I think, are the ones that we've identified that are regional in nature and are really kind of that building energy and focus as we move forward. Scenario planning is a primary focus area for FY23, and it really looks at fully developing an immersive process for the region, which will help long-term with not just transportation planning, but also how the public engages with the TPO, how data is shared and visualized, and also provide connections and possibilities between different disciplines, transportation and housing, transportation and environmental resilience, all those kinds of things that we all know are connected, but this will actually provide some data points that might help to quantify that. Continuing work on workforce mobility and accessibility, increasing our planning for freight and multimodal connectivity is included here, as well as transit focus and equity. And expanding access to transit, we think is a priority right now with the energy that's being seen in terms of BRT discussions that have taken place. We know that GRTC is considering a north-south BRT study, and with the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there's lots of new funding opportunities that'll be available to consider for the next fiscal year. So we think that this is a good focus area as well, to kind of be that partner and work with GRTC and others in the region to look at expanding access to transit. The top one here is the last regional one. It's identifying strategies for making sure we continue using performance measures. As you know, during the LRTP process, we had 15 different performance measures that were used to score and rank projects. We are using similar performance measures to help identify regional funding opportunities for the CBTA. And we think that continuing to use performance measures across all of our programs, whether it's suballocated funds or specific freight projects, for example, or transit activity, is going to be a positive for the region, and it'll provide some consistency so you all know where the data is coming from and how it's being applied. The next items that have the blue highlighted text are some of those planning emphasis areas shared by our federal partners. We are leaning into data management sharing and actually have a new position that is advertised right now for a data manager to help us kind of use that quantified data and performance measures and be able to incorporate that into all of our activities and tasks. Improving consideration of equity and justice in the planning process. We know that we have started that, but there's a lot of ground to still cover. And we think that is a reasonable and worthy consideration for FY23 as a priority. We heard loud and clear through the long-range planning process that it would be nice to have additional measures to consider impacts to the environment and to the resiliency of the region. So tackling the climate crisis and having some considerations for clean energy, we really wanted to focus on data and what stories we could tell with data, but providing some more resources for decision makers in regards to environmental impacts and resiliency impacts is again another worthy addition to the FY23 priorities. Safe streets. We have done a fair amount of work in this realm, and we think that that's something that can continue. A number of you are involved with our Vision Zero work group, which to my knowledge, has not been considered on a regional basis up until this work group was created. We think that regional action plan should be developed by the end of the fiscal year can continue to be a foundation for further consideration of safe streets. And then public engagement, continuing to kind of grow that toolbox and be able to be a resource for the community and provide multiple opportunities for people to be involved and take part in our planning process. The last one here is planning environmental linkages. This is something that we might be able to grow. This is one of those programs that might be on the tail end. It really leads to a lot of consideration of the engineering and NEPA process in project development. And I think that the TPO could be a high level resource for many of you as you consider project implementation. It's really kind of building that bridge between the long range plan and actual going into project development. So that's another priority that we think we can start to at least identify some focus areas on. With that, that brings to an end the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions, but the action item that's recommended today is to recommend that the policy board approve these priorities for FY23. We did do an overview of them at the policy board meeting last week and didn't receive any particular feedback on the priorities. They knew that the TAC was going to consider it, so I think they're waiting for your recommendation.
Any input or questions for Chet? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
This is Nicole. I motion that the TAC recommends policy board approval of the work priorities for the FY23 UPWP as presented.
Thank you, Nicole. Do I have a second?
City of Richmond.
I think I heard City of Richmond first with.
Sorry, Barb.
And Ms. Firestone, I guess the roll call is next.
Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Yeah, I think your volume's kind of low. Ms. Amos, they were calling for
Yeah,
your
I thought
vote.
I heard Ashland. Aye.
Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Aye.
Richland County, Mr. Coleman. We'll go back to Mr. Coleman. Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez.
Aye.
Rankin County, Vice Chair Smidler.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
DRTC, Ms. Sink.
Aye.
Plan RBA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ridefinders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
VDOT, Ms. Mueller.
Aye.
Do we have Mr. Coleman with us?
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for that item.
Thank you, Ms. Firestone. Next on the agenda is existing STBG Cmec project request by Mr. Bushing. This is an informational item.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So this is our existing RCP Cmec project requests. So just as a quick overview and reminder of the process, selecting projects for the sub-allocated STBG and Cmec funds is a primary responsibility for the TPO. Our sponsors are eligible to request either new projects, which are looking for funding from the TPO for the first time, or additional funding for existing projects that have been previously selected. In general, we prioritize the existing projects over any new projects. Makes sense to complete what we've already started before we move on to something new. And our regional project selection framework provides guidance for cost increases and how we handle those. So the general framework guidance is that sponsors should use local or outside funding first. The TPO funding, additional TPO funding, should be a last resort. Requests greater than 10% have to be approved by the policy board. TAC can approve any requests up to 10%. And the TAC recommendation can be any of the following: can scale back the project, recommend using outside funding, recommend using TPO funding from the balance entry, or if the project hasn't started, can include recommendation to deselect the project. So what we have is an overview of each of the requests for the program and staff's recommendation. And what we're looking for today is just a recommendation from TAC on how to proceed with these projects. It's not a recommendation that's going to go to the policy board. It would be incorporated into the draft plans when we bring it back to you, so you have another chance to review whatever comes out of this process. So for RSTP, we don't have an available budget yet. So the updated budget for FY23 is not yet released. We're expecting that by the end of the month. So what staff did was go through, based on our FY22 budget numbers, look at recent transfers and closeouts and our target reserve policies, how much money we're trying to retain in the balance entry for each fiscal year. Based on that, we have about $7.3 million available for FY23 to 27. And we have $11.3 million in requests for existing projects. So our requests are exceeding what we have available. There is additional funding that would be expected in FY28, but that is already committed. We have about $18 million worth of commitments that we had to push out of the 6-year program last year due to the budget cuts that are expected to be covered in FY28. So I just wanted to go through each of the projects and give you a kind of an overview of what the request was, what the shortfall is, and what staff's recommendation is moving forward to be able to get TAC feedback on this. So the request for this project, this is the Route 360 widening in Hanover. The request is 1.9 out of a shortfall of just under 3.8 million. Essentially, the increase on this one is largely due to unit costs for construction. And there's a little bit of right-of-way outstanding, but it's primarily construction that we've seen across the board. Staff's approach on looking at each of these was the same that we brought to you with the Commerce Road project back in December. We looked at the percentage that's been currently funded by the TPO, and our recommendation is based on that percentage. The thought here being there's not enough money to go to all the projects, so partial funding makes sense to help get everyone to the finish line. So the recommendation on this one was 1.753 out of the 1.9 that was requested. The next project on RSTP was the Route 10 Super Street in Chesterfield. This has a $1.3 million shortfall and a $1 million request. The county is already expecting to cover the $300,000. This has been some change orders based on unexpected conditions, and then that extended the project duration and increased the CI cost. 39% has been covered by the TPO up to this part. So we're recommending 507. That's 493,000 difference from what was requested. The next project is the North Parham Road Signal and Sidewalk. This is a $580,000 request and a $580,000 shortfall. This one is, again, the construction costs that we're seeing across the board, and then a transfer to VDOT administration. We've funded 70% of the project to date, so our recommendation was 406,000 on this one. The next one is another Henrico project, 3 chopped road improvements. This one is more right-of-way related to the cost increase. It is seeing the construction as well, but basically right-of-way is ongoing, property values are increasing, and there's been a lot of counteroffers and design changes requested. So this one is requesting the full 5.2 million. Our recommendation, again, based on the historic level of 2/3 of the funding coming from the TPO, is the 3.48 1.86. So this gets us up to 6.3 million out of the expected 7.3 based on the FY22, which we have one last project, but we're not recommending any funding on this one. This is the Sadler Road improvement. So this is a $2.6 million request. The difference here is there's no shortfall on the project. The county has previously committed local dollars to it. It's included in the App A, and it was included in conversations with TPO staff a few years back when this first came up. Since we are in a tight budget situation, our recommendation was not to put funding where there was already a local commitment. But obviously we're open and bring this to TAC for your input on these. So this is the full RSTP program request. These are the 5 remaining requests. Madam Chair, if you'd prefer, we can take questions on RSTP now, or I can move on and do Cmec and we can do all the questions at the end.
Might be easier just to, if we have anybody has any questions right now about RSTBG, since Miles has the slides up. Any questions for Miles about the RSTBG? Barb, I see Ms. Smith, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask about Sadler Road. You know, a lot of times the local funds on Appendix A's are local no-post funds, not necessarily actual local funds. So for Sadler Road, was that just local no-post or actual local funds?
Sure, I'll defer to Ms. Smidler to answer, but in our conversations with the county, we were informed that it would be CVTA local dollars. So I'm not sure whether that was a no-post or a real commitment, so.
Yeah.
I mean, we were intended, you know, oftentimes we do local no post, as Ms. Smith was saying, and then we try to get funding where we can while still providing some matching funding of our own. I don't recall the specific thing that we were coming up with the difference with CVTA local. We're fine proceeding with it is. We were disappointed to see it didn't get funded, but understand the shortfall. I did want to comment on 3 Chop Road improvements. We appreciate, you know, the recommendation for a portion of the grant, but we weren't asking for the full shortfall amount. We're also putting 4 to 5 million of local shortfall funds towards that. And so we were asking for a match of that on the previous slide.
We have a similar situation on the Super Street, not that I'm trying to get more money on that project, but there's, I appreciate what you've got shown in this presentation, but there is a significant amount of local funding going towards that project, in addition to money coming from VDOT and also from the TPO. So it's a big expensive one, so.
I guess this is a good point for staff to raise. Staff's recommendations on this were based on maintaining our reserves at our target policy levels. So TAC does have the ability to recommend that we tap into those reserves as well, in which case we could fund these requests fully. But the caveat being we would have less available to respond to overruns that happen for year 1 in particular during the course of the year. And then that's essentially limiting the dollars that would be available for new projects in future funding cycles. So there's a reason we have the target reserves, but TAC does have the ability to recommend we use some of that as well. So I think this is one option that would be available for us to be able to meet the full requests, if that is the guidance TAC would like to give us, and we can work with VDOT on how to achieve that.
Ms. Smith, go ahead.
I'm a little nervous about taking away too much of the reserve based on the market these days. You know, we just keep seeing projects advertised, bids coming in super high. And, you know, if we want to keep the projects moving forward, I feel like we need to keep some of that money in reserve so we can be able to award projects.
I hear you. Yeah. All right, if there's nothing else on STBG, Mr. Bushing, if you could move on to Cmec, please.
Sure, thank you. So for the Cmec side, it's a little bit easier. So on the Cmec, we looked at the same thing. We started with the FY22 budget and our target reserves and recent closeouts. And the funding is not nearly as tight. We've had several large closeouts recently. So we have about 6.4 million available through FY27 and only 1.5 million in requests. So our recommendation was to go ahead and fund all of these requests fully. So the three projects, the first is the Ridefinders region-wide air pollution reduction program. So that's the Ridefinders program. This one is more informational that we're including it. It's 500,000 off the top every single year. And this is the third year of the program. So we allocate the first 3 years of the SIP. We put funding towards this program each round. So this would be the third year. They already have funding for 23, 24 from previous rounds. This would be the 25 funding. So as long as Ridefinders continues to meet the program goals and provide the annual reports, this funding comes off the top. The next project is Route 1 bike ped improvements, Marina to Marywood in Chesterfield. So this is, I believe, a smart scale funded project that was selected a couple of years ago. There was a cost increase and the TPO picked up that cost increase of 414,000. The project has increased by 1.2 million now, and that was due to the cost to carry it across a particular property design changes. The county is picking up 700,000 of the cost and has requested 500,000 through Cmec. Again, this would increase the TPO share of the project, but this is a fall line segment, and staff feels that we have sufficient funding to be able to provide this. So our recommendation was to fully fund the request. And then the final project was Patterson Avenue. This is 524,000. And this is a fully funded TPO project. The increase in cost is primarily the construction costs and the transfer to VDOT administration, the same as we saw in a couple of the others. Again, since we have the funding and this is fully funded by the TPO, staff recommends fully funding the request at 524,000 as well. So that is the three projects we have from Cmec. We do have a resolution if TAC feels comfortable moving forward. This is just a recommendation for staff. This does not go to the policy board. This is for us to include and incorporate with the draft allocations plans that we'll bring back next month. If not, we don't need to take action. As the agenda noted, this is informational. So TAC can leave it as it is and staff will just move forward with these recommendations without any formal action. But basically it was just incorporating those amounts as previously discussed for each of the programs. So the 4 RSTP projects and the 3 Cmec projects. So happy to answer any questions you have on Cmec or any broader questions about the programs.
Any questions for Mr. Bushing? Hearing none. I'm okay with just proceeding with this for an informational item. Is the advantage, I guess, of changing it to an action item on the agenda would be, I guess, you would have Plan RVA would have a clear path of how to allocate this, but given the feedback we've received at this meeting, it sounds like you can move ahead with this.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I mentioned, we will be bringing this back to you as part of the final allocations plan in March. So you'll have a chance to review it again. And should the funding levels change, these numbers are subject to change, obviously.
Okay. We'll plan on just keeping this as an informational item unless I hear from others. Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Bushing. Number 9 on the TAC agenda is TA set aside recommendations. This is listed as an action item. Mr. Bushing, go ahead.
Sure. And thank you again, Madam Chair. So TA set aside, we've heard a little bit about this morning, but Transportation Alternatives is primarily funding for bicycle and pedestrian improvements in the region. It is funding that's set aside from the larger Surface Transportation Block Grant. And as we heard from Tara earlier this morning, this program also includes safe routes to schools. So the prioritization process that we have is laid out in the project framework document, the same one that covers RRTPO and Cmec. So basically it's a cost benefit, and it's 80% of the score is based on your statewide merit score. So that's the scorecards that VDOT releases each round. And then the remaining 20% are more regional factors. So 10% is based on equity emphasis areas that are served. So this is based on what was defined in Connect RVA 2045. Essentially, we take a half-mile buffer around your project, look to see if it's overlapping any of those equity emphasis areas. And if it is, you get credit for serving that population. The other remaining 10% is essentially based on whether the project is consistent with our regional network that's been defined. Since we still don't have a new bike ped plan, this was based on the 2004 plan. But it's basically the network that's been identified for a regional pedestrian and bike network. If your project is helping to advance one of those identified corridors, then you got credit for that. And then the final cost benefit is over the cost in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's trying to scale it towards the available funding, which brings us to the wrinkle that we have with this round. Much like what we just discussed, we don't actually have a budget. So the funding numbers aren't available. The tricky part with TA is that the MPO is required to make our selections this month, essentially. VDOT needs our answers by March, or the MPO has to hold its own public hearings and then coordinate with VDOT and the CTV to get the projects into the STIP and the SIP before the next federal fiscal year. Because of that, we always try and move forward. VDOT's recommendation was to use our FY22 funding level and just keep that flat across the 2 years until we're given more information. So that's what staff's done. You can see it's $1,071,000 per year. Another policy consideration is the Safe Routes to Schools non-infrastructure programs are competing for TA funds for the first time. In the past, the infrastructure piece has been in TA, but there were separate funding for the non-infrastructure programs. Based on our methodology, the program was the top scoring project. So the draft resolution does include funding for the Safe Routes to Schools program. The question for TAC is essentially, should we be funding program with our programs with the sub-allocated dollars, or should we only focus on the infrastructure improvements? So that is something TAC may wish to consider. So the requested action today, what staff did was essentially prioritize all the projects and then work our way down the list until we couldn't fully fund the next project. So the resolution is a recommendation of the policy board to select the following 6 projects. So it's the Safe Routes to Schools program in Richmond, a pedestrian crossing on 360 Hull Street in Richmond, the Cool Springs Elementary School in Hanover, Route 360 Courthouse pedestrian improvements in Chesterfield, a very short fall line segment in Chesterfield down in Chester, and then the Lakeside Community Trail Phase 1. This is additional funding for that project, which is a big piece of the fall line in Henrico County. So those 6 projects would be fully funded. And then the second part of the resolution essentially says we are expecting the budget's going to change and there'd be more money. So here's our priority order for the remaining projects. And this is based on that prioritization method and we've included those tables in your agenda packet. So that's an overview of the actions requested. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have.
Miles, I have a question. It's about Fall Line Trail, Lakeside Community Trail Phase 3. It just doesn't make sense to me how that project could score #1 in the state, #1 in the district, and still be ranked by the TPO as 15 out of 21. It just does. Could you help explain that?
Sure. So the benefit score, I think that was the second highest benefit score once we added in those two regional factors. What it came down to is, since our methodology does that cost benefit, the project cost, I think, was $2 million. So that brought down the overall cost benefit score. So yes, there's a lot of benefit, but it costs a whole lot more than the other projects. And that's kind of the trade-off. Since we're doing the cost benefit methodology, anytime the project cost is going to be higher, it's going to bring things back down. So that's the main thing on that side. The other piece of consideration is, we could fund it. It would be the only project that we could fund. I mean, that's the other component. So that by using the cost benefit, it does allow us to do more projects in the region as well.
I hear that. And maybe, Henrico can support, the recommendations so far. I don't, maybe for the next round, I think we need to take a deeper dive into that, and maybe there will be more funding without looking at the ratio of the cost and factoring that in. Would you mind sharing just an Excel spreadsheet with the TAC members, or at least me, just so I can try to look through? I know it was in one page of the agenda here, but if you don't mind sharing that Excel file with the TAC members, that would be helpful just for me to process.
Sure, we can provide that.
All right, let me give everybody else a chance to comment. Anybody else have any comments or input or questions for Mr. Bushing?
Maybe just a comment for the group. This is only a portion of what ultimately will be approved in the Richmond district. My understanding is that each CTP member has $2 million at their discretion to assign to projects as well. So, if you looked at the statewide scoring that was released recently, some of those projects presumably will also be funded in this equation.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Clark.
I make a motion to approve the resolution for the consideration and recommendation to the RRTPO Policy Board for the FY23, FY24 Transportation Alternatives Program as presented.
Barb Smith, second.
We did have a second. That was Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
The roll on that.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, that was Miss Amos.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't hear you. I think you said my name. Aye.
Thank you. Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Aye.
County, Mr. Coleman.
Nay.
Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez.
Aye.
Rico County, Vice Chair Smidler.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Miss Clark.
Aye.
DRPT, Miss Dubinsky.
Aye.
DRTC, Miss Sink.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ridefinders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Miss Mueller.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. That concludes the roll call on that item, and it did pass.
Okay, let's see. Number 10, FTA 5310, Application Endorsement. Mr. Lance, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning. It's my pleasure to present to TAC for approval by the TPO the FY22 Section 5310 applications for the Richmond region. 6 applications requesting a total of $1,954,000 have been submitted. I'd like to request TAC's approval of the TPO's proposed resolution of endorsement of the following Section 5310 applications. Number 1, Chesterfield County Community Citizen Information and Resources Mobility Services Operating Assistance and to support the cost of trips, $533,600. Chesterfield Community Mental Health Services Board purchased 2 15-passenger body on chassis vans with wheelchair lifts for $130,000. Number 3, Goochland Cares purchased 1 14-passenger van with wheelchair lift for $65,000. Hanover Dash is number 4, provide and expand specialized transportation for non-driver older adults and individuals with disabilities for $750,000. Number 5 is Senior Connections, provide mobility management and transportation services for older adults and persons with disabilities for $305,000. And number 6, GRTC, provide travel training assistance for $150,000. So thank you. I appreciate TAC's action endorsing these applications.
Any questions for Mr. Lance? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
This is Barb Smith, so moved.
Laura Amos, second.
Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunez.
Aye.
Henrico County, Vice Chair Smidler.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky. Ms. Dubinsky.
My apologies. Aye.
Thank you. GRTC, Ms. Sink.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ridefinders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
CDOT, Ms. Mueller.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for that item.
Thank you. Let's see, we're working our way through this agenda. Number 11, VDOT Stbg funding request, UPC 97688, Route 155 shared use path. Mr. Bushing, go ahead.
Sure. Good morning again. So this item is a transfer request from VDOT. So just a quick overview. This project is a shared use path on Route 155 in Charles City County. It goes from the Capitol Trail up to the schools. It is a link in the courthouse to courthouse trail, which is supposed to connect New Kent and Charles City County. This phase was completed last year, but it's over budget by $88,857. The overrun was essentially, there was subgrade that was encountered that wasn't suitable, so they had to excavate and backfill with stone and wound up running over budget from this. So VDOT's request is to transfer previous funds to cover the overrun so the project can be closed out. So we actually have a little bit of surplus in earlier phases, but you can't move it around. Essentially, we have to allocate a little bit more to then be able to close it out and get back whatever's surplus in the earlier phases as well. This project is still subject to the same framework guidance since it is a cost increase. So sponsors are requested to look for additional funds outside of the TPO. Requests of less than 10% are approved by TAC alone. And this is less than 10%. There's over $2 million on the project already from the TPO. So TAC can approve either using the balance entry funds or requiring some other funds to be found. Staff has looked at this. This project is fully funded by the TPO. So it makes sense for us to continue funding this one as well. And we did work with VDOT to ensure we had enough in previous funding when we finalized the Commerce Road transfer to be able to make this happen. So we are recommending approval of the $88,000 to close out this project. So the requested action, and this would be the final action on the item, not a recommendation, is that the RRTPO approves the transfer of the $88,857 in previous regional surface transportation block grant and match funds from the balance entry to the Route 155 shared use path project. I'm happy to answer any questions, and hopefully Nicole has any additional details if there's anything specific about the project.
Any questions for Mr. Bushing? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
This is Nicole. I motion that the TPO approves the transfer to the Route 155 shared use path project as presented.
Barb Smith, second.
Okay, Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Aye.
County, Mr. Coleman. Dunez. Mr. Dunez.
Aye.
Thank you. Henrico County Vice Chair Smidler.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Miss Clark.
Aye.
DRPT, Miss Dubinsky.
Aye.
GRTC, Miss Sink.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ridefinders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
And VDOT, Miss Mueller.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes roll call for that item.
Thank you. All right, we're on down to getting to the last few things on the agenda. Number 13, Transportation Agency updates. DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Yes, good morning. So I only have maybe three items of note for this month's agency update. First is related to HJ 542, or Transit Equity and Modernization Study. I did mention last month that we had submitted our interim report to General Assembly, and that report is now available on the project website, which is vatransitequity.com. In particular, the report will showcase all the initial findings based on the 6 technical areas, as well as the outreach that we conduct with transit agencies and the public. Over the next about 7-8 months, we'll be working on the study's action plan, and we hope that this will have some recommendations as to how we advance transit equity and modernization efforts throughout the state. Next item I'll mention is right now we just closed out our FY23 grant applications, but for our Section 5303 applications, those are still open. The deadline is May 2nd, 2022. So for all of our MPOs, as you're developing your UPWPs, just keep in mind about that deadline. If there are any questions about the applications, please reach out. I hope that Olga will be up and running for all of our MPOs to be able to submit their applications in the next week or so, but I'll be able to provide more information. Also related is that we should anticipate getting funding estimates within this month. Usually it's around the 18th or so, depending on when FTA releases their projections. So you should see an email from me once those are made available. Last item I'll mention is that with Smart Scale Round 5 coming up, I know Nicole probably will have a little bit more information, but as always, for technical assistance related to any transit or rail applications, we do have 2 point of contacts for transit. Please reach out to Taylor Jenkins, and then for rail, please reach out to Randy Selleck, and I have provided their email addresses in our agency update. And that is all I have for today. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dubinsky. Any questions for Ms. Dubinsky, DRPT? Hearing none, we will move on to GRTC. Sam Stink.
Thanks. I'd like to yield to Adrian Torres and Nick Britton from Michael Baker to give an update on the microtransit study. Is Adrian still on? I don't see her. Nick, can you handle this for me?
Sure. Let me, am I able to share my screen?
You should be able to, yes.
Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I am hesitant to hit to full screen because then it will start sharing the wrong one. So I might just operate off this one. Yeah, I won't take too much time up, but I do want to just highlight some of the ongoing efforts that GRTC is doing right now for microtransit study. This is a project that did get started back in the summer, and we're working in the entirety of the Plan RVA area, so that would include all 9 jurisdictions. Real quick, just kind of what microtransit is. It is a type of transit service that is not currently in the Richmond area, but I think the best way to explain it is that it is similar in kind of in how it works to Uber and Lyft, where a transit operator is providing a door-to-door or curb-to-curb service, I should say, to passengers that, you know, it's usually in some type of bus that's smaller than your typical 40-foot bus. It's much more of a van or body on chassis type vehicle. So it really, what it does is it fills a different niche than fixed route transit or even paratransit. It's much more of a trip extender. It can help with neighborhood circulation, and it also works as sort of that demand response service that's not that's more, I guess, immediate than typical demand response services elsewhere in the state. Just real quick, I want to kind of go over the study progress to date. We did a public survey that ran in late 2021. I'll go over just really quick highlights in a second. We also talked to peer agencies across the East and Ohio, New York, elsewhere in Virginia, and we talked to other operators in this region, including Bay Transit, Access Chesterfield, and Hanover Dash, all who offer not necessarily similar to microtransit, but at least other types of transit in the community that may or may not microtransit may or may not complement in different contexts. So when we spoke to other providers to kind of get an idea of what their experiences have been and kind of what niches they're filling in the transit market for the greater Richmond region, and how microtransit may help them out as well. So as I mentioned, we did do a survey. I want to highlight 2 items in the survey from the takeaways. We had about 1,000 responses over the month and a half the survey was active. One of the things to note is that this survey did tend to capture people who weren't consistent users of GRTC. Over or just under 2/3 of the respondents indicated that they rarely or never use GRTC services, and almost half of them indicated that they drive alone as their main mode of travel. So it is of note that this survey did pick up some of the behaviors of people who are not all that familiar with GRTC, or at least not common users of GRTC. So it is a market that may not be tapped already, but you can just kind of see that there was some interest in the service. 80% said they would be willing to pay up to $6 and wait 20 minutes for a ride, which is consistent with other microtransit services throughout the country. And 1/3 of the people interviewed or that responded to the survey said they would be interested in using the service at least once a week. So there are other takeaways as well, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of those. From the peer agency interviews, I won't go over all of these, but you can see the list at the bottom of the different jurisdictions that we looked at, including Austin, Texas, Dayton, Ohio, and so forth. Basically, this was done to look at regions that are similar in either size or context to Richmond, and look to see kind of what lessons learned they have for us. We developed sort of a do's and don'ts list, so to speak, of kind of different options for microtransit, and what we could learn from agencies that are already doing this in similar markets. And then, like I said, we met with the 4 service providers that are also in the area, including Bay Transit, which is in Goochland and New Kent, Hanover Dash, which is the paratransit service that started a few years ago, and then Access Chesterfield. And we just wanted to meet with them because, the interest here is not competing, but more complementing the different types of service that there are in these areas, and talking a little bit about different markets that aren't currently being served that microtransit may be able to provide value added throughout the community. So just real quick, talking about how we developed initial results. There's 3 steps to really developing microtransit recommendations. One is identifying the zones that you would look at. So microtransit is kind of limited to zone areas to make the technology more efficient. So it's not necessarily a county-wide or a city-wide thing. It's much more of a kind of narrower geography in terms of kind of what the size is. And then based on kind of the universe of zones that are developed, you start prioritizing and ranking them based on different types of metrics, such as equity metrics, land use activity, the activity generators in the area, and then what existing transit may exist in the area. And then finally, you design that service so that so you have different, so that the different types of microtransit serves different purposes, whether it's neighborhood, circulating, or first mile, last mile, filling those gaps, the first mile, last mile. So you just kind of design the process around that. So real initial results, don't look at this as any sort of final recommendation, but these are some of the areas that we identified as suitable for potential microtransit in the future. And wanted to go over what the next steps are going to be. We sent out invites yesterday to all 9 jurisdictions in the region to set up meetings. So we're basically, as an availability poll that we sent out to set up meetings over the next couple of weeks to meet with all various parties in the counties and city to discuss how microtransit may be able to fit into the needs, the transportation needs of those communities. So we invite, I think we sent it to everyone that's on the TAC and other people that we knew or had identified in previous meetings as being interested in microtransit. But what we did is, or what we're encouraging, I should say, is kind of sending out the invite to other parties that may be interested in transit in the community, including human service agencies, social service related agencies in the counties and city, and want to make sure this meeting is open to as many people as possible that may be interested in how this particular form of transit can fit into any or meet any needs that may exist in that transportation area, And so as we move forward with these meetings, we'll start developing some more targeted recommendations and get prioritize and identify some of the service areas and what the system will look like design-wise. And then we will talk to GRTC and work with the TAC and the TPO to see what potential there may be for implementation of potential microtransit pilots. So as I mentioned yesterday, we sent out, Monday, it should be 2/7. We sent out emails to all the jurisdictions. So if you did not get an email, please let me know or contact Adrian at GRTC or Sam at GRTC. and make sure I can get you an invite or an email sent as soon as possible so we can get you everything scheduled. But at these meetings, we're basically going to go over what microtransit is. And what I did today is not an adequate overview of it. Just wanted to make sure I'm being respectful of the time. But we'll go over microtransit and kind of how it works, what it does, and how it might meet some needs for each of the jurisdictions. And as I mentioned, it's not just a transportation issue here. We're talking about social services, services aimed at seniors or individuals with disabilities, and any other areas where transportation may play a vital role in solving some or any issues that may be identified or needs that may exist. So if you have any questions, please let me know or contact Adrian or Sam at GRTC.
All right, we'll jump.
Oh, hey.
Sorry, when Tiffany was talking, my internet dropped, and so thank you, Nick.
So I covered it pretty quickly. So
thank you.
I skimmed over it, but I just wanted everyone to know that if they did not get an invite, to let either you or Sam know, and then I can forward those out as needed.
Great. Yeah, just to let everyone know that the goal of all of this is to end up with a prioritized kind of list of micro transit opportunities in the region, and then come up with some that are identified that we could actually pilot in either FY23 if they're ready to go, or the year after that. So again, like Nick said, we hope to get these done as far as the meetings with jurisdiction started in the next week. So please respond to the poll that they sent out. And we want it to be very inclusive so that we can kind of work with the various different agencies within your jurisdictions to identify needs that may not even be, I guess, documented as exist, so that it might not end up being microtransit, but maybe some other mobility need that is in your jurisdiction that could also be included in the regional public transportation plan.
Okay, thank you, Adrian and Nick. Enrico did receive their email yesterday from Josh Mallow from Michael Baker yesterday afternoon, and the title, just for other jurisdictions, was GRTC Microtransit Meeting, and there's a doodle poll. Yeah. So we will be filling that out. And I did have a question. Is the GRTC Microtransit Study MetroQuest survey still open, or has the survey closed? I saw the link on MetroQuest was still open for public comment, but just
if it's still open, I don't know that it should be, but we did close it in December 15th after it was open for about a month and a half, and it was. I know, I believe Plan RVA provided links on their social media as did GRTC. So I do not believe it is open still. If it is, I will probably want to close that because technically it's not still going, but we still will look at the comments that we do receive in case there are more.
Thank you. Yeah, Henrico had shared the link on our webpage, and so I had just clicked on our link and it did bring me to the MetroQuest survey, but I'll delete that study off our webpage. Thanks for the update. Any other questions for GRTC?
It looks like Chet had a question. Would it be okay with TPO staff to attend one of the meetings?
Yeah, that's I'm not speaking for Adrian, but I believe that's not a problem at all. So yeah, I will, Chet, if you want to email me, I can get you scheduled for any of them. I think they're basically going to be the same kind of, I mean, there may be a little tailoring of the message based on the jurisdiction, but as far as the microtransit element of it goes, it'll be the same information. So any number of those meetings may work as far as attending.
Great, thanks, Nick.
Okay, hearing no other questions for GRTC. Next up is an update from Ridefinders. Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to keep it kind of brief today. Ridefinders did meet with DRPT to discuss the fiscal year 23 grant van pool applications and van pool program. We also forwarded the Department of Environmental Quality's Clean Bus Program grant information to all of the localities in the Ridefinders service area. That also included all of it in Plan RBA as well as down in the Crater PDC. We submitted the Commuter Assistance Program's monthly van pool report to DRPT, submitted the fiscal year 23 grant applications to Colonial Heights and DRPT. The Ridefinders Advisory Board meeting was held virtually on January 26. We also continue to promote the Be the CEO of Your Commute across all of our social media platforms. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that we did complete the 2-year project for the development of the guidelines for establishing a shared use park and ride lots with the Department of Transportation Research Council. I was on that program and that project. I did share that with Chet. And if anyone is interested in a copy of this shared use project, I'd be glad to forward that to you. And with that, Madam Chair, if there aren't any questions, that I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Ridefinders and Mr. O'Keefe? Hearing none. VDOT update, Ms. Mueller, please go ahead. Ms. Mueller, I don't think I can't hear you. I can see your screen and I can see you. I just can't hear you.
There we go. Can
Okay,
you hear
great.
me now? Perfect. Thank you. I'll start off with some highlights from the January CTB meetings. Workshop presentations were received on Winter Storm Frida, which was the I-95 incident that occurred up north of here. There was a presentation on multi-use trails policy. Our local assistance division provided an application update for the FY23-24 Transportation Alternatives Program. OEP gave a project pipeline update, and a presentation was given on the revised FY22 through 27 Commonwealth Transportation Fund 6-year financial plan. Those are some highlights from the presentations at the workshop. Moving on to the action meeting, some highlights. The board adopted the revised FY 2022 annual budgets for the CTF and for VDOT, and they also adopted the revised FY 22 through 27 6-year improvement program. The next workshop meeting will take place next week, Tuesday, on February the 15th at 10 a.m. And the action meeting is on Wednesday, February 16th at 9 a.m. I will note that this will be the first meeting run by our new Secretary of Transportation, W. Shepard Miller III. Moving on to Smart Scale Round 5. The final technical guide has been released and is available on the Smart Scale website. Pre-application training for applicants will take place on February the 22nd. A portal blast email will go out with a Google form to register, and Jake will also send an email a week or so before the training to remind everyone. Pre-application is anticipated to open on March the 1st, and I do want to remind everybody to please reach out to us, let us know how we can help. Concept or application development assistance is available through VDOT Richmond District Planning. The VDOT cost estimating training has been postponed, and we will let you know when we have another date for that. Moving on to the 6-year improvement program. The development of the FY 2023 through 2028 SIP will begin this spring, and we do anticipate having public meetings again this year. So we'll be getting those scheduled very soon and let everyone know of those dates. We will be coordinating with TPO staff to review Stbg Cmec project information to make sure the information is updated and accurate. Not too much new going on the Fall Line Trail. We're working hard. VDOT staff continues to work to determine which segments of the trail can be advanced most efficiently. We anticipate having potential scenarios available in March. And we also continue to work with the CVTF Fall Line Work Group on trail implementation. And lastly, there are currently no public hearings in the TPO study area. And that's my update, Sharon.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. Any questions for VDOT? but we appreciate VDOT's support with the pre-applications and meeting with us, and I recommend other jurisdictions take advantage of that. Thank you. All right, number 14 on the agenda is future meeting topics. Anyone have anything to add for future meeting topics? Sorry, page 57 of the agenda has Stbg Cmec application cycle, DRPT, statewide rail plan, scenario planning, bike ped plan recommendation, CVTA project prioritization updates, and Tri-Cities area MPO interagency consultation. Are there any other topics members would like to see added?
I guess smart scale needs to be on there.
Yes, good point, Barb. And I think Chet will be coordinating in a meeting before the TPO in March so that we can discuss the round 5 smart scale applications for Plan RBA.
Yes, everyone be looking for an email from probably Janice with a doodle poll or something similar. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 15, any TAC member comments? Hearing none, the next meeting is scheduled, well, March 8th, but we will meet again before the TPO meeting to talk about smart scale round 5 and the submitted applications. If there isn't anything else, this meeting is adjourned. I appreciate everyone's patience as we went through this long agenda, but we got it done. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.